I don't know. We got Rayleigh criteria right now on the panel. He's had a lot of conversations with people talking about how light bends and what is your like some of the things that you I know that's why you named yourself Rayleigh criterion, but what is some of the ways that people are trying to show you the curve that doesn't is not the curve?
Yeah, the biggest curve myth is ships disappearing hull first.
Yeah. And what have they ever given you a distance to when they start seeing that phenomena, or is it just as they did? They usually they don't know. They're just saying, well, ships disappear from the bottom up. You start asking them questions like, well, what's the distance that you would say from an observer staying at the beach to however far away? I've heard of
Yeah,
some distances, but they're never usually the same.
it's like I said. There's so many factors that occur when you're looking at something that they're absolutely clueless as to all the different factors that affect what you can and cannot see. I sort of got into the study basically from uh, being an amateur photographer, right? And you have to be able to decode the scene before you take a photograph, because if you don't know what you're looking at, your picture might come out terrible. And I noticed things like with one of my original Kodak digital cameras. It's like, oh, if I try to use the flash and I have it zoomed out, which means the aperture gets smaller, the flash really doesn't do anything. It just doesn't get the light into the camera. And so you start thinking about these things, going like, oh, what's the effect that's causing this? And then you realize, oh, there's the smaller your aperture, the less you see. That's how it works.
Yeah, but they don't realize that when they're actually taking photos. I don't think people really know about cameras that well, so they
No,
make the
they don't.
assumption, right? Is that why they do that?
Yeah, they just assume that what they're seeing through a camera, especially digital cameras, is accurate. And nothing could be further from the truth. Because I've taken, with my camera can take both RAW and JPEG images at the exact same time. And you compare the two pictures and they don't look anything alike, because the camera will modify what it's looking at to make it into a picture so that people look at it and go, oh, that's what I'm seeing. But it's not the same thing. Well, what your camera saw something completely different, did some digital processing to the image to make it look normal. So that's why every time I see those silly photograph of those steel the metal bars or whatever along the horizon, and then they crush that picture down into compress it dramatically, and I just look at that and go, you clearly have no understanding how photography works, because that's the dumbest thing you could ever do. Is take a JPEG compression photograph and then compress it even more. You
what's
lose details.
what's that one that they were using that one time, really? The it looks like a water or like a spirit level sitting on top of a table, like that's like looking across the way so you can see the horizon, and then they compress that image, and then it looks like the image is all bent and warped.
Yeah,
And they say that that's curvature. It's like,
yeah, that's the one I say. But
oh, that's the one
but
you're mentioning.
but,
Yeah.
but what they don't realize is, because they don't understand how cameras work, is that the table that they put this on is all in focus, which means the horizon is horrendously out of focus. You know,
Right. Right.
cameras are not magical instruments. They're not. Our eyes work different than cameras do. We kind of see everything in focus because your brain is tricking your eyes and brain are being tricked to think everything is in focus, but cameras cannot do that. You would have to have like a very small aperture to get everything in focus, but as soon as you get that small aperture, stuff starts disappearing.
Yeah. People don't. We don't have the conversations that get too in depth with like cameras and such, and I think that's probably the reason why a lot of the guys who believe the Earth is a globe get it wrong, because they just assume that what they're looking at is curvature. Like bottom up obstruction of the boat is definitely curvature.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't realize, like, they'll say stuff like, "Oh, the Nikon P1000 is a great camera," and I look at them and go, "It's not really that great,"
Yeah, exactly. What
because I know
what
it's an interesting camera, but it isn't a great camera. It's a mediocre camera at best.
what's that? You remember, like, I don't know what year it was, maybe 18 or 19, 2019, where they were talking about the stars that they were taking a picture of that looked
Yeah,
all like warped and whatnot. Like they were like, oh, this is what stars really look like with the P900 or the P1000. I'm not really sure which one it was.
it was the P900. The P900 did not have a manual focus ability, which is bizarre because even my cameras from many years ago had it. I guess they never really thought people would be dumb enough to point them at stars and try to
Yeah.
take videos and photographs of them.
Did
But
you
it's
see the
just
stuff that they were saying what stars really look like? Like for a while, a lot of flat earthers were backing those people up. They were like, "Man, this is what stars really look like," and it was like, it looked really awkward. Like, you know,
yeah, yeah. Do you really think a star looks like that with $1,000 camera, or if I show you through a $1,000 telescope, which is showing you a proper focused image?
yeah,
You think you're being somehow deceived by your own brain and eye looking through that eyepiece? You know, it's just
yeah.
not how it works.
It almost seemed like they were so against the mainstream narrative that they were jumping on a ship that was not even able, like, you couldn't make sense out of it. You know what I mean? So it was most of it was just because it was against mainstream. So everybody was just like trying to get as much information as they can to build up these arguments that were against mainstream. And I don't know, was it you or somebody came to our channel and like broke it all down with cameras and whatnot? As I don't know, it might have been you. I don't know, but somebody was talking to us about it, and they were like, I think we invited him for like a show, but it all made sense. Like the camera was causing that distortion, like the way they were focusing it.
Yeah,
So
the focus plus the what's known as digital artifacting, because the camera's trying to make something with that image.
right,
So the little digital processing is going to cause it to warp and stuff. Because there's some really weird stuff that can happen with digital cameras, right? So it's trying to do something. Because even myself using the cameras, every once in a while I forget to use the proper settings.
right.
Now I've kind of programmed them into my camera, but there'll be times where it's like, oh damn, that shot just got ruined because it just changed the focus. You know, it's like,
Exactly. But I mean, because you think, and most of the time people bring up, watching something at a distance, like the Glober doesn't understand how perspective works. They don't understand, like, the angle at which we see something from the surface. Like it's gonna cause. There's a lot of factors, right? Like people don't usually think about these factors or variables that will cause some type of distortion from the thing we're seeing in the distance. And I think that's a problem. It's a huge problem.
yeah, because even McToon, somebody gave McToon a P1000 to use, right? And so he takes a picture at practically twilight or something, and he goes, "How come I can't see the bottom of the building?" "Oh, you mean the building that's in shadow, that's not emitting any light? You're surprised you can't see it?"
you
It's like, what?
you can't make this stuff up. But honestly, Rayleigh, I think it's because they've been in the light of like having these debates for such a long time that they're kind of like the leaders of that, so they could pretty much say what they want, and everybody's gonna be like, "Yeah, he's true, he's right. What he's saying is correct." And so you're going against, like, trying to, like, he doesn't know what he's talking about if that's what he's saying, you know?
Yeah, because I've been to a couple of McToon's live shows, and he gets a couple hundred people watching his show, and I'm like, that guy talks nonsense, but
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
but it's popular nonsense, so they watch his show.
Yeah, it's like just the same amount of nonsense as it is for like some people believing that the stars look like that from a P900. So on both sides, I would say there's a bunch of nonsense being spoken of, and nobody's addressing that nonsense. Like there's nonsense on both sides.
Yeah,
So
true.
we become those who have like kind of weeded those arguments out. We're like, dude, that there's no supportive evidence. Like, yeah, we all understand the Earth is flat and stationary, but then there's a lot of stuff that people bring in to flat Earth. They're just like, okay, I got all my baggage. Where do I put it? Well, not here. You're not gonna bring in your ice walls and your domes and nah, that stuff is over there. Go to the Facebook forums or something. You're not gonna do them over here, man. We're actually trying to get people to realize that the Earth is not a globe, so that they can see the realization that they live on a horizontal plane. So it's difficult to do that when you're bringing all these nonsense arguments, and so that's kind of the reason why we don't indulge those types of conversations too much. I think for the most part, because getting into there, it's just like it's so like you have to, especially like you, really. You've at least looked into it for some time, so your research covers some knowledge about like what you've gathered so far. But
Yeah, I kind of came into it sort of the reverse of what most people did. Like if you
yeah,
listen to Mark Sargent, he says, "Oh, I heard about flat Earth, and then I tried to debunk it, and I couldn't." And I sort
yeah,
of did the opposite way. I had heard of flat Earth back in 2004 from the radio, and then later on in the 2015s when it started getting more popular, and I went like, "Oh, I want to see how the Globers debunk these things." So I looked at the globe evidence that debunked flat Earth, and I said, "This is utter nonsense. I have no clue what they're talking about."
by the way, is my mic echoing or is it better? Sorry.
Yeah, you're better now. Your echo wasn't too terrible, but it's much better now.
My phone was on, so I was because I had
Yeah, you were
my,
getting some back feeding.
I was getting back feed. Yeah, so appreciate it, Helio Skeptic. Thank you so much, sir.
And then even yesterday, I had a heated argument on the politics 24/7 about somebody who thinks he knows what the Rayleigh criterion is, and I'm like, it's like, oh, if you read it, it says points of light. Well, do you realize that everything you ever see is just points of light?
Yeah.
Like, do you know that the Rayleigh criterion also applies to looking at things through microscopes? You know, there's it's not just points of light. That's the kindergarten explanation. Is because when you're spending tens of millions of dollars, you know, or hundreds of millions of dollars building a large telescope, you need to know what it's capable of, so you know you're spending your money wisely. So they talk about points of light in the sky. You're looking at points of light. What can it see and not see? So when you're spending that kind of cash, it makes a big difference. But for the average person, everything is a point of light you're looking at.
People don't realize that when we're having these conversations with the people that think that the Earth is a globe, that they don't have the arguments that they think they do with long distance observations and such. I think they feel like it's all already a foregone conclusion that it's known to be a globe. So we have all the information that light bends over the curved surface on our side. Is what I'm thinking. Most of these guys are actually coming from the angle of like that's what they're thinking,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they've been spoon fed all that for their entire lives, and that's what they believe. But like I say, one of the easiest way to explain the Rayleigh criterion is like if you see an ant crawling on the ground by your feet, you'll be able to see that ant. But if that ant is 100 feet away, you'll never see it. And that's the Rayleigh criterion. Your angular resolution cannot see that ant.
Right, right.
It doesn't matter where the ant is. That ant could be 5 feet off the ground, could be 10 feet off the ground. It's just too small to see. Blends in with all the everything else.
I
And
think
that's
this
what,
topic is a fascinating topic, though. Really, I honestly do, man, because we don't often talk about it too much. But I think this space kind of it's gonna give us a little time to look into it. So maybe some of the Globers that can come in here and like bring up some points as to how they can, show us the curve. Maybe we can tell them about that. I'm thinking, yeah,
yeah.
you're the guy for that. Basically, you've been researching this for quite some time.
Oh yeah, because when I was a teenager, I used to go to the library and always read the astronomy magazines, right? So I kind of knew a little bit about how these telescopes work when they talked about them in the astronomy. So I'm like, yeah, they make bigger and better telescopes to see more. But most people, like I said, most people think they take their P1000 to the seashore, and then oh look, the vessel is hidden. It's like, yeah, because the P1000 does not have a large enough lens. Because when you look at the calculations for the Rayleigh criterion,
Hmm.
you look at your human eye, the size of the human eye pupil, and based on the Rayleigh criterion for it, you're lucky if you can resolve a 1 meter object at around 2,000 to 5,000 meters, depending on how good your vision is. Most people are closer to 2,000. But in order to see something at like 50,000 meters, my iris would have to be 10 centimeters in diameter in order to resolve an object at 50,000 meters. And
Dang.
that's what people don't understand. You need a bigger iris to see more.
How big do you think we'd have to have an iris, a big iris to kind of? It'd be the
Well,
size of mountains, right? Like for us to see that far of a distance, like to
yeah,
bring it.
like I said, you'd have to, but that's what most people see. They take their little camera and go, "Oh, look, I can see this." But what you need to take is like a 14-inch telescope, something with a large opening and an iris in it, and then you'll see a lot more.
Yeah, we don't. Like I'm saying, really, we don't have these conversations too much because people are just assuming anyway that the Earth is curving, so they don't know. They just think like, well, I don't see the bottom of something, so I know that's curvature.
Hmm.
And you've argued this for quite some time that it's not. It's just, the optical effect that we see at a specific distance.
Yeah, exactly. The guy yesterday tried to argue that, oh, if I'm looking at a small angle of the sail, that's less than looking at the entire boat. And how come I can see the sail and I can't see the entire boat? And it's like, yeah, that's not how the Rayleigh criterion works.
Oh man.
There are other factors as well. Plus, like I said, observing across an ocean, believe it or not, is the worst thing we could look at. Because the my best photographs I've ever taken have been at nighttime when there's no
Hmm.
sun reflecting off the water.
Yeah, what does that light do for people looking across the surface of the water? What does that do for us? Like, tell us why it would not be suggested to do that. I mean, your opinion. It sounded like you.
Yeah, there's like I said, Dave, there's just way too many reflections off the water, and so that brightness of the reflections is what's going to obscure dim objects in the distance.
Now, would you say things in the far distance would look? The word is opaque, right? It causes like that haze, that opaqueness that you can't see past.
Yeah, that happens as well with poor atmospheric conditions, and where most people live, which is in the non-tropic areas, we have the worst atmospheric conditions. If you lived in a tropical area, the atmospheric conditions tend to be better. And you can find that out when they talk about the Britannica Encyclopedia about lighthouses and how when you're in a tropical area and you've got much clearer air, a lighthouse beam will travel further than it will in the northern hemisphere under lesser conditions. And then it's really freaky when they talk about, well, if it's foggy, you're lucky if even a million, like a billion candle watt power or whatever, lumens or whatever it is, would even shine like 900 to 1,000 meters. It's like it will barely make it there.
Yeah, long ago they used to use those lighthouses with you know, I mean, how many candle watt power did they have when they were trying to
Yeah,
shine those lights across, across the way so that they can guide ships into the harbor. So,
yeah, and the development of the Fresnel lens is would have been completely useless on a globe, but it works perfectly on a flat Earth. Because
it's
what would
weird.
be the point of trying to push a light beam further out if the Earth is a globe? That light beam
That's
would be
never been
shining up into
argued,
the air.
Rayleigh. That's never been argued, man. We should bring that up. It's a good argument. Damn, that's a damn good argument, actually.
Yeah,
Like, what would the purpose be? If you were shining a light and the light would cause oh, but see, they would talk about refraction and the light would just bend around the curve. So there would their answer be, right?
yeah, that's what they would have to say. Yeah,
It
the light
would
just
bend,
bends.
the light would bend, but light that's another interesting thing to talk about. It's like so either light is going straight or it bends, right? So we're gonna have to make up our mind what it's doing off in the distance. So does light take a straight path like or does it bend? I know that depending on what kind of light you're shining, it's gonna have the effect where it's just gonna scatter, and by the time it reaches the target, it'd be not that much light that's gonna reach it. That's gonna the surface area that it's gonna be hitting it'd be so large. So um, you know what I
Yeah,
mean. Your target's not gonna have the beam that it did when it first started.
yeah, and like these telescopes have these lasers on them that help them to do adaptive optics. So they shoot a laser out there, and they watch what comes back from the laser and stuff like that. Then they can determine what the atmosphere is doing and correct for it, right? And it's like, well, we could, if we could get our hands on one of those lasers and then do it at a high altitude, like Lake Titicaca, where the altitude's so high that the atmospheric effects are minimized. Then they could say, oh, yeah, it's refraction. You mean at this altitude with this thin air?
It's just like Colorado. I mean, we're there and I take some nice images.
Yep. So it's kind of why they all put these telescopes on really high mountains, 14,000 feet, so that they can get nice clear air images.
Yeah. Unfortunately, like as you put it, if you're shining from light from a lighthouse off into the water to guide ships in, that light would have to reach that ship. And if they're thinking the light is bending around the curve, then how could they substantiate the amount that it's bending? Like they'd have to know, right? That'd be something that they would have to because it's a claim.
Yeah,
Light's
and
bending around the curve.
it's
So
it's miraculously that it curves exactly like it would on a flat Earth.
yeah, so I think they're in trouble when it comes to that because they have to depict on how that's happening and how it's occurring. So if they don't, they can't just with Globers, they always try to make the claim that's just happening. It just is. Light's just bending. And if you ask them the question by how much, they're not gonna be able to tell you.
Yeah,
So I don't know. We got Flatsy on the panel. Welcome, Flatsy. We got Magna Cadu right now, who's in here. We got Prometheus in the house. We got Mr. Moreport. What's up?
Hey guys, can't speak too much right now, but I will be able to in a minute.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna shoot some mics to you guys. If you want to, pick them up. You can join us.
are you air frying some hot dogs or something?
No.
Air frying hot dogs. What up? What up? 24/7 Flat Earth, episode number 8. Show me the curve, guys. Hashtag Flat Earth. Send this space out to everybody you know. Shout out to the listeners. What's up, guys? Welcome, welcome. Another day on Flat Earth, and no one here to present evidence that the Earth is curving. At least even How can you guys show us curvature of the Earth? Do you think that exists? Do you think NASA has given us the images to solidify the point that the Earth is curving, just like the way they're showing us? That's interesting. Maybe you do. Perhaps you want to chime in. I threw everybody a mic, so come on in. Oh, by the way, we're also live on YouTube, so appreciate you, Helio Skeptic. He's streaming us live on YouTube, so.
We're simulcast on YouTube.
Oh yeah, and we're gonna go long, so maybe it's gonna get interesting. We usually, I know Flatsy was here the other night. We got crunk, man. We towards the, it must have been like 4 o'clock on. Dude, we were jamming. We had like 70 people up in here. Like, all kinds of people were in here. And the more people we get following, then the more people are gonna be joining us every time we do a space. So I'm gonna try to do it consistently, which I've already have. This is my first day off, so I'll be doing two more, one tomorrow and the next day. So yeah, come and join us. Other than that, yeah, is there any evidence that the Earth is curving? We got panel member of speakers right now. We got Magna, Rayleigh, Flatsy. What's up, guys?
If the Earth was curving, there'd be billions of photographs of the curve.
That's what I'm talking about, man. Like, wouldn't there be some like way that they're gonna show it to us? Like, here you go. This is the curvature. We had Soundly's photos. You remember that? Soundly had his Lake Pontchartrain, and they were saying that is the way that curvature looks. Now, if I'm not mistaken, man, that Lake Pontchartrain to the horizon was 12 miles. You guys can correct me on that. I think that's where it was, but it was at 12 miles where the horizon was, and it looked like so distorted, and I'm like, my goodness, like he said that at the time that was curvature of the Earth.
And I think India was saying that he had like hundreds and hundreds of photographs of that, and then he finally found the one that showed like the most distortions and said, see, evidence of curvature. Yeah, it's Lake Pontchartrain is 40 miles long and 25 miles wide.
Yeah, I don't think the curvature is being demonstrated there, but I mean, people want to believe it so badly, so there it is, right? And even scientific communicators like Neil deGrasse Tyson says, you can't see the curvature of the Earth. That stuff is flat. And then he says it, with such veracity. And then these guys come in here and tell us that no, it's Earth's curvature, man. It's just a ball belief, man. Heliocentrism. We got Mr. Dave Hinkle in the chat. What's up, Dave? Hey, by the way, I gave everybody a microphone. So Prometheus, Dave Hinkle, Mr. Moore, you can jump in the mic if you want. Yeah, but the topic is just show me the curvature or the curve, but most of it has to be where they're demonstrating. I could just give you an example, like Soundly's photograph of the Lake Pontchartrain. But it's really silly because there's no way that you're going to be able to demonstrate that that is Earth curvature, because if it was, how big would the Earth be? If that was curvature at 12 miles away, then finish the curve all the way around the Earth. How big do you think this Earth would be? I mean, doesn't it make sense to you guys that mathematically it doesn't add up? It has to. Like, why would you say that's Earth curve? I don't get it. Being brought up in the ball belief, I guess. One person to request to speak. Get vaccinated. Get vaccinated. You're not coming up here. Every time, because he used to come up here the very first time that I opened up the space, and he would play his little soundboard. Then I told him I wasn't gonna bring him up again, but he keeps trying to get up here. But shout out to you guys. Appreciate you for joining us here on X Spaces 24/7 Flat Earth, episode number 8. We've already on 8 episodes. You should check out the other ones. Pretty funny. So Magna, do you know about the 24/7 group, or is it just here in Spaces that you?
Yeah, it's just here. I think I just caught one of your last spaces, like the last maybe hour of it before I fell asleep.
Oh, right on, right on. Yeah, we're. Did you come off of the other spaces for Flat Earth? Like, there's like maybe two other groups that do it. I know the Level Heads do it, and maybe somebody else, but there's random people that do it. I've seen a lot of videos that people post in like TikTok. Some random Flat Earth people that do their own shows and whatnot.
Yeah, I've never been on TikTok.
But yeah. So, what are some of the arguments that you've heard of, Magna, for the Earth being a globe? I mean, how long have you been discussing this topic? Has it been a while, or?
Yeah, it's been close to a decade for me.
Oh, really? Shoot,
Yeah.
you're not a new kid on the block. You're an OG.
No. Like I said, I hadn't even really listened. I mean, I just kind of have been getting in with X. I don't do social media very much.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, when they did the spaces and I started seeing these pop up, I was just kind of curious to see what what everybody's discussing with this lately. I've seen some people posting stuff, and I wasn't too hopeful for. So a lot of the spaces I've been in have been pretty good, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that convolutes, just like it always has
Mm-hmm.
been. But um, yeah, I think one of the main there really isn't any proof that I've seen that anybody else hasn't. I don't think it's all the same thing. It's you can see the pictures, la la la. I just the whole idea of gravity holding water and everything else and all the different layers of strata, all the different types of material, everything. While we have all the centrifugal force of everything in the earth supposedly pushing outwards, but yet they have a gravitational constant that's supposed to keep all this in check, but yet it can decide which material is heavier and lighter and keep this here and keep that there. It's just silly to me, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a scientist, so but
We had the guy. we we had the guy that was on our last space that was saying that an accelerometer shows us that the Earth is moving upward. And I kid you not. So the Earth is moving upward according
uh,
to an accelerometer on your phone and an app.
could have been the continental plate he was standing on, maybe.
I
I
know,
don't
but
know.
no. Here's the interesting thing, right? Because I even like later on we were talking about it because I said there was no naturally observed phenomenon of the Earth moving around, spinning, on its axis. But the other thing too was okay. So let's just take for example, if you have an accelerometer and the Earth is moving upwards in your location, but if you live on a globe, right? If you live on a globe, then everybody that's on the globe, let's say everybody geographically, every point on the globe has an accelerometer. And if you say it's moving upward relative to the person's position, right? So they would be pointing up to the sky because that would be up to them. Now imagine somebody antipodal to that person, and they say that they're pointing up to the sky, that the Earth is moving upward. Which way is the Earth going? Is it going in the direction of the guy in America pointing upward, or the guy in Australia pointing upward, or the guy in Japan pointing upward? Which way is the Earth going? So there's a lot of like how they don't understand because it's self-defeating. If you're saying the Earth is moving upward according to an accelerometer, then who's it going up for? Because everybody on a globe would be, in different positions, and up would be different to everybody in respect to each other. So how could you tell which direction the Earth was going if it was going up? You
Yeah,
you get what
I
I'm
would
saying?
think there would be a number of different directions the accelerometer would be picking up if it was spinning and moving through space like
Yeah,
they said it was.
yeah, exactly. So and he started to add that he's like, well, it's also detecting the spin. I was like, dude, you first of all, you came in here saying it was detecting motion, that upwards motion. Now you're saying it's detecting spin. I was like, he started to add a lot of stuff to his story, and Yeah, it's really, and I said it before, it was a tangled web he was weaving. And so he just got caught in all of his lies. Like, you can't support a lie that grand, because what happens is you're going to get lost with the first part that you started to make, because the upwards moving earth part. How can you justify that if everybody is antipodal to everyone else on the earth being a globe, right? So if I'm standing in the US and China's opposite for me, and you're standing straight up, then if you're saying earth is moving upward, if you're standing in China, not saying the earth is moving up and I'm standing in America, we're going in two different directions. Up means something differently than you and me. You get what I'm saying? So how does it work? Does it work?
Yeah, it seems faulty on its face to me,
Mhm.
but
So yeah, accelerometer, not good evidence that the earth is spinning. So I mean, back to the drawing board, right? Like, they have to go all the way back and try to figure out, how is it possible that they're going to present evidence of this. So I invite them. I tell them to come on in. All right. Let me see, Dave. I'm gonna shoot you a mic, and then you can accept it, and then you can join the speaking panel. Let me see. I'll try again, sir. Give me a second. Yeah. So right now we're just waiting on if there's any Globers are gonna come in here. But we got Rayleigh Criterion, Flatsy Klein, and Magnet Catus. That's a strange name, Magna. You got right, Magnet Catus.
it's the best Google Latin translation I found for loud cat.
Do you have a loud cat?
Very.
He'll let you know when he's hungry, or
Yes, she's quite vocal.
you could have a conversation with somebody and she's meowing away. You're like, oh, dude, not right now.
Yep, she's one of those that yeah, you look at her, she starts yapping, so it's funny.
Yeah, but there's a lot of discussions we have um on the politics server, and even in our own server, but lately in the politics server, with these guys who think that the Earth is a globe. Like, before I came on here, I was asking like a group of 4 or 5 people if they have direct measurement of the Earth's curvature, and that's the only thing I wanted an answer to. And they're like, "Well, how about an indirect measurement?" I was like, "No, I'm asking for a direct measurement." It's just I kept asking them over and over again for the very specific thing, and they just kept avoiding the question. Well, you guys are bullies and this and that, and this forum is messed up, and I'm like, so we're spending all this time on this meta conversation instead of just answering the question. Could have just answered it by now. If you have the information, just say, here it is, there it is. If you don't, say I don't have it. We'd have been moved along by now.
Oh, come on, Alpha. Didn't you know they measured it 2,000 years ago with some sticks and shadows?
Oh my gosh, dude! Every time they bring that up, it's cringe, because it's like, at the end of it, we already know. Even if you think that the Earth is a globe, it's not conclusively a globe, because you can say that a demonstration of shadows and light can be done on a flat surface. Definitely can be done on a flat surface.
Yeah, I always ask them, well, how did Eratosthenes measure the distance to the sun?
Yeah, you have to have the radius for that, pal, for sure. The first rung on the cosmic distance ladder. But
Well, they just knew it was far away. I said, no, believe it or not, the ancient Greeks actually thought the sun moved across the sky and the Earth was stationary.
good old Eratosthenes.
Yep. And the librarian of Alexandria, right? And then they keep telling you that the library burned down, right? But do they tell you it took 6 months for the library to burn down?
Dang, 6 months? They must have had a lot of information there, huh?
Well, it looks like they weren't overly fast at putting out the fires, I guess.
Those guys. One thing I know is that you can't burn truth. There's no way. Because even if there wasn't anybody to speak about what the Earth is, the Earth would be self-evident, showing that it's not a globe. Obviously,
Well, yeah,
we don't
'cause
go, we don't go outside and see the curvature of the Earth. That's why I named the show this. Show me the curve. Come on, guys.
like how many ancient societies all believed in flat Earth? They came to that conclusion all by themselves.
They always bring up Pythagoras.
Because I don't think the Mayans ran into any ancient Greeks during their time period.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
If they did, then we had some ancient technology that we're unaware of.
Yeah, there was many codexes that were burned, almost all their history. So who knows what happened? A lot of that area.
Well, they had to, because if you can control the past, you can control the present, right? Make up stories.
Correct.
They're trying to tell us too, like the maps that we use now are maps were they came from like the 1700s. I mean, how is that possible? We're using these ancient maps still today. Why haven't we found something more like? And I tell this I talk about this to the Globers. I'm like, if we do have all this satellite technology, and we can take these pictures from Earth, like from space to about Earth, then why wouldn't we have something like pinpoint accuracy with these maps? Like we don't have that. Why not? And I'm asking them that. So it's a lot to deal with. Well, the information's too grand. You don't have to stitch everything together, and it's like, and I'm still saying the same thing. It's like, well, if it's that much of a problem today, why do you guys make it sound like it's barely an inconvenience? We could do that. Got all kinds of satellites out there.
Well, I have read that when people try to take aerial photographs and stitch them into a globe, it doesn't work.
What was the problem with that, Relay? What do they say that the issue
It,
is?
it just doesn't work. It won't stitch together in a globe shape.
Yeah.
Which is probably why the NASA guy had to, make that photograph image that was basically computer generated with some semblance of reality, but
Yeah, he hit Command Z a lot, is what he said. It's so funny. Mr. Blue Marble.
yep.
We could argue that point, obviously, but the globalists would just believe that there's still pictures out there that represent the Earth.
They tell us like we have these satellites out there at the Lagrange points, and strangely enough, they never equipped them with cameras to take pictures of Earth.
I wonder why that is.
Maybe
because there isn't any way to do that. Because you can't take a picture of the. And then I think one of the ones that you've seen for the 1972 image, the actual Earth according to the globalist. That's the real one. That's a photo of the Earth. 1972.
Blue marble. Yeah, and of course they took that photograph when they were much too far away from the Earth. Because with the lenses they had on their cameras, they didn't have to wait until they were that far away to get the entire Earth into the picture. But they did. And somehow they just waited until they were way too far away. Because I think you only need to be like 20 to 30,000 miles away before it'll fit into the camera frame.
Mm-hmm.
And they waited until they were like 100,000 miles away or something.
Now we got a good picture. Mr. Morepork says, "Hi all. Can anyone explain how the spinning speed at the equator versus the poles work?" I mean, they're just saying that at the equator, if you think about a globe spinning around, they on its axis, like directly north or south, depending on where you're at, what pole you're at, you're not going to feel as much rotation as you would if you're at the equator, because that's where you'd feel the most speed from the Earth spinning around at its oblateness, so where it's most oblate. But I'm not sure specifically. Here, I'll toss you a mic if you want to come up and ask your question specifically what you mean. But according to them, it's spinning at 1,000 miles per hour at the equator. But yeah, I dropped you a mic. If you want to just come up here and kind of ask your question. There's a lot of assumptions about how the Earth is spinning on its axis, and it has to do with what people are seeing outside. So they see the sun move across the sky. They see the stars spinning around, and so they say that's the reason why they think the Earth is spinning because of that. But yeah, if you wanted to come up, I gave you a microphone. You can ask some more questions about it. Other than that, yeah, man, we're just hanging out, talking about the week's ongoings about flat Earth and globe Earth discussions. They are still talking about wanting to go to Antarctica and doing the final experiment and finally put everything to bed, like whatever that means. But yeah, doesn't matter. The sun moving around the sky is not gonna do anything. And Magna, did you want to weigh in on that? Like, have you heard about that?
Who's talking about going down to Antarctica?
There's a group of people that are involved with signing some contract, and it was one of in our last spaces. You could look at the nest. I think it was in the last space or the one before.
Okay.
Apocryphon put the information about the contract that was supposed to be signed by both parties, that they were going to go to Antarctica, and it's in dead of winter, right? So they were going to see a 24-hour sun over there.
Well,
Believe that or not, but that's
all well and good. They're not going to get anywhere near it.
Yeah.
You can't get, nobody can go down there without government permission and a military escort.
Yeah, these now I don't know what they're talking about, but there's a chartered boat that actually. Here's the interesting thing I'm thinking about. How can a cruise ship or some chartered boat go there if in the dead of winter there's a lot of ice that reforms because it's wintertime? Or no, excuse me. Now it's no, I'm thinking of it backwards. It's summertime for them. Never mind. Now I'm thinking of the opposite. You can't go there when it's summertime for us here because it's winter for them over there. And then some of the ocean around the ice shelves will freeze up. They need one of those icebreaker ships to get through. But that, never mind. That's something different. I think these guys are gonna go when it's wintertime for us and it's summer for them over there. And supposedly they're gonna see the 24-hour sun.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they got permission to even go down there. Usually, it's only scientists and people that are allowed. You have to be invited or
Yeah.
to go down there.
Allegedly, it's supposed to be a good amount of money for each individual. Now, somewhere in the ballpark of like 10 grand an individual. If I'm not mistaken, there could be a little more or less than that. That's a lot of money, dude, for going to go see the sun if it's going to be there for 24 hours or not. I mean, like, okay, if you want to spend that kind of money, and it's either, I think it's funded by this guy who says he's like a church leader or something.
Yeah, Will Duffy.
Yeah, Will Duffy, he's a church leader or something
He's a
like that.
pastor or something now.
Yeah, and then they're gonna take their people, So I think a couple of Globers and a couple of flat earthers, and so they can witness either the sun 24 hours or not. That's why they call it the final experiment. Because if they do witness the 24-hour sun, according to what they've been saying, is that it's going to make the flat earthers question the flat Earth. But if they don't see the 24-hour sun, it will make the Globers question the globe. But either way, it's not going to do any of that. One side's going to walk away claiming that doesn't matter what it is, like, even if it's the Earth being a globe, I think that they're, confirming or not confirming. Even if they don't see the 24-hour sun, the Glober's going to be like, yeah, but that's because, something, some phenomena that the Earth is tilted too much and you couldn't see it, or they'll come up with another excuse as to why they can't see it. I guarantee it. It's not going to ever be the case that they're going to be, oh yeah, that's great. Oh, Grisp, thanks for that, Grisp. It's $30,000 for each ticket. They got to be. This is the crazy. I don't even think going over there is the craziest part. I think paying for the thing to go over there is the craziest part, dude. $30K for one ticket to go. Oh
Yeah.
Yeah.
my.
I'm surprised it's actually that little going, because
Dang.
it's a huge expedition to get down or wherever, to get out to the ice. It takes a long time, and it's not cheap. Yeah.
There's
Thirty
the one,
thousand.
yeah, the one tour company called White Desert who takes you down there. They just brought up a limited time tour that will keep you down in Antarctica for like 3 or 4 weeks or something. It's $2 million. Yeah, they want $2 million if you want to participate in that one.
Oh, just 2 million only?
Yeah, just 2 million.
That, that way
Their
they
problem.
cheapest
guarantee you
tour
to
gives you
only be
three
able.
hours on the ice shelf there, and that's $15,000.
Is there any cheap seats? What are the
Right.
cheap seats, man?
That is their cheap seats. Their
Can
other
you go
tours typically
as a
run
stowaway?
30,000, 60,000, or even $110,000, depending on the package.
You can go as a stowaway over there and go visit in one of the ships. So they won't know you're there, but you could pop out just to see the 24-hour sun. They can arrest you and everything, but just so long as you see the 24-hour sun, they could go back.
Well, you don't have to go to Antarctica to see it. Should be able to see it as soon as you get 60 degrees south. You should be able to see it from a vessel.
What's up? What's up? We got some people joining us. We got some people listening. How's it going, guys? 24/7 Flat Earth, episode number 8. Show me the curve. Yeah, we've been doing these shows for some time now, so I think we're getting a little crowd coming into X. Appreciate everybody who's in here listening. Relay Criterion put $1 million. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
16 days on there
for $1 million bucks?
for 2 million.
Oh, for $2 million. Okay.
Yeah, price per person.
Usually when we have this conversation with people, I don't know if Magda has ever heard of this before, but they think that it's barely an inconvenience to go there, like to Antarctica. Oh yeah, just gotta go down there. We're like, dude, there's an Antarctic treaty that doesn't prevent for like free travel to go over there. Like it's not. I mean, just logistically, it wouldn't be possible just to get on a boat and go. But according to them, it's just yeah, you flat earthers are just making this up, dude. That's nonsense. That's not true. They say that. And I'm like, okay, so the Antarctic Treaty isn't real then? Like what?
There was some rich yacht guy from Europe. I don't remember. It was a couple of years back. He tried going down there. I remember it was on the news, and the military intercepted him and arrested him, and it was a big deal. They don't want you down there.
Did they what did they do with the guy?
I don't remember. I think they released him. He was just some rich kid that wanted to go to Antarctica, and he announced it on social media he was going down there, and took a yacht pretty far down there. But yeah, the U.S. military, the Navy, intercepted him at some point.
I've always said that about that, man, and people are just like, "What do you mean the Navy's guarding Antarctica?" I'm like, dude, there's such a thing as called radar, and plus, when you leave port, they know where you're gonna be heading. They have all
Yeah.
logs of that stuff. Come on, man, like, like for real. Like, isn't there a record that someone's keeping somewhere of like all the ships that are leaving harbor? Like, duh.
Plus all the transponders they have to have. I mean, just for your safety, being out in the ocean, you got to have some kind of a transponder if something goes wrong. It usually is on all the time unless they turn it off.
Now, if it's just me, but like boats that are in the South Seas, isn't the South Seas really terrible? Like, it's like not. It's there. People usually caution if they're in the South Seas anywhere.
At least in all the nature programs, they say that's the worst oceans on the globe.
Yeah, the South Seas, right? Like you can't
Yeah,
just travel there and be like, oh yeah, we're just gonna get from here to there. Don't worry about it. Like, no. So
Yeah, there's
yeah.
very limited places to go in the South Seas. So if you get yourself in trouble, where are you gonna go?
You can't pull up to your nearest convenience store and ask for directions. Like there's a way you can do that in the South Seas, bro. It's like a yeah, you'd say like it'd be a desert. So one of the I think the oceans are the largest desert, man, because there's nowhere like just a void. There's nothing out there. There's nothing but water everywhere.
Well, it wasn't uncommon that during the James Cook's days of exploring the South, there they would lose 25% of their crew just to scurvy.
Yeah, scurvy. Like how long did that's weird. How long would it take for somebody to get that? It's quite a bit, right?
Well, yeah, it takes probably a couple months because, like I said, it's their low quality food, right? Because they're just a lowly sailor on there, right? So they're getting no fresh foods, right? Stuff like that. The only thing that saved sailors from like scurvy and stuff like that, believe it or not, was the Galapagos tortoise and turtles and all that stuff. It took them 300 years before they actually returned one of those Galapagos tortoises to the British Museum. Do you know why it took them 300 years?
They ate the rest of them.
They were eating them because they were delicious, and the tortoise also had this bladder inside them where it kept its fresh water supply. So you ate the turtle. It was very delicious, the turtle, and it gave you fresh water as well. So they used to pile these things on board their ships as a food source, and they wouldn't die while they were on there. They would like more or less survive for months without food, and they would fresh meat basically.
Couldn't you use a shell for like a giant, bowl? Was it it could just it came.
Yeah.
It's a food source that came with its own bowl. You just turn it upside down. I'm making it funny. Anyway. It's weird though, right? Because we're talking about going to Antarctica and proving the 24-hour sun for the greatest experiment or the last experiment or whatever they want to call it. That's not going to be evidence of anything, though. Like they think that because the 24-hour sun is going to be visible there, that's going to debunk flat Earth, and that's because the AE map that people have been talking about is the flat Earth. It's not. I even talk about that often. That's not the flat Earth. That's just a map projection that's a squished out globe, So
Yeah, and then go like, well, where's the flat Earth map? Where's the flat Earth map? Do they not realize it costs millions of dollars to make accurate maps?
that's why they're still using the 1600 Mercator projection.
Yeah, 16th century map.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. Why doesn't anybody even ask that question? Nobody's bothered by it. It's like, dude, what map do you think is on Google right now on the what is it, the globe? What the Google Earth one? It's a Mercator projection. That's what you're looking at when you look at the Earth as a globe on Google Earth. It's the Mercator projection. You don't believe me? Look it up. Just look it up. Yeah, they're lost with all these ideas of maps and models and well, you guys don't have a map. You don't have a model. Yeah, neither do you. No scientific model anyway. So
Yeah, even getting maritime maps, those things are expensive too. If you want like the entire East Coast or something, the United States, something like $3,000 to get them.
yeah, you have those charts that the navigators use for like flying planes. So airline companies support all these charts for the pilots to have up in their cockpit. So they have maps also. So I mean, they're not using a globe. They're not spinning it around and saying, "Okay, we're starting from here, and we're going to end up over here." They're not pointing on 2 points on the globe. Like that's ridiculous. Yeah, it's kind of funny though. They continue to do that kind of stuff. They want to prove that the Earth is a globe with a reification of the Earth as a globe. Google Earth. Yeah, I'm right. Get some of the stragglers to come in here in a little bit, talking about globe nonsense.
Yeah, if I wanted to buy the maritime maps just for Lakes Erie and Ontario, send me back $600.
And why do you think it's that much though, Rayleigh?
Because they're expensive to make them accurate, right? That's where the main expense is.
Is there any curvature in those maps, Rayleigh?
No, I don't believe so.
Did they put a little legend at the bottom to how much the Earth is bending around the ball? Like that curve, it's because it's curving. You gotta account for that, man. That's how you get the most accurate maps. You have to account for the curvature. Like the $600 map is accounting for all that curvature. That's why it costs so much money. They gotta make sure that they take all that into account. What was the name of that map that you could we could all look it up.
Well, they have a whole bunch of different names for whichever map, right? But you can get like the electronic navigational charts, and you can also get them in paper, stuff like that. So if you just look up maritime charts and for purchase, and then you just say you'll find a dealer, and they'll tell you how much they are.
And somewhere, I guess what I was gonna say, somewhere around on that map, there would be a legend that shows you where they took into account all that curvature. From points on that map.
Sure.
Because
I'm sure they did.
Yeah, because if you travel from point A to point B on that using that map, and if you didn't account for the curvature, I mean, I'm thinking you're gonna be lost, bro. You're gonna be way off. You won't, $600 down to two, unless there's some correct globe math on it. That's all I'm saying. Jeez. And that's the other thing too. So if you're not accounting for the curvature, then how do they say it's been accounted for on any of the other maps? You know? There was a guy trying to tell me a story about how there was a pharaoh in Egypt, and he sent these two guys out that sailed around Africa and came back and give him the information of how the sun, its position on the water, was telling the sailors like that the earth is curving, so they knew that they were going around Africa, the continent, because that's circumnavigating Africa, and they knew it's a globe because of that. He was like, literally just, he was talking stupid things, like how can you, where can you find this story that said what you said? Like, they didn't give it. He's like, no, I'm just talking off the top of my head. I'm like, no, I don't think you're talking off the top of your head, man. Like, this doesn't sound like where it's coming from. This is a made up story, dude. Anything to solidify the earth as a globe. Amazing.
One of the things I always found interesting is people trying to explain how the SR-71 Blackbird can move at the speeds that it moves and not have to account for anything the curvature wise.
I've heard the opposite, Magna. They use the Blackbird as the one aircraft that does account for curvature because of its speed. That's what I've heard. They were trying to argue this point, actually.
Yeah, could you elaborate on that? I've not heard that.
Yeah, they were saying because of the speed that it travels, how fast it's going, it would have to, because it's covering so much ground so quickly that it would continue down a linear path, and a tangent on a globe would be a straight line that sits on the curved surface. So eventually, if the Blackbird wasn't accounting for it because it's going at the speed it's going, it would definitely fly off into space, but not really, because it accounts for the curvature. That's why it doesn't. Get it? Like, that's what they were saying with that particular craft. On a debate that I had, I don't know if it was months or years ago, but I remember the SR-72 Blackbird being brought up in a conversation. But they're saying because it moves at the high speed it does, it's one of the only. There's one faster than it, even, I think. There's one even faster than that. But they're saying that because of the speed of that one, that it has to account for it because it's going too fast. The other planes that they don't travel fast enough to where it would matter, like.
Yeah, it sounds like a big cope to me, but I don't know.
It is a cope, because it's like, I think when I asked him for that, I was like, okay, if you're saying that's the case, can you provide the citation where that is? Where is it saying that? Like, anywhere online? Can we look it up? And he was like, I had that information, but I don't know where I put it. I'll get back to you on that, he said. And he never did. They never do. They say they're gonna get back to you on stuff, and they never get back to you, man. Ever. That's like the one and only time you'll see them in either Discord or here or anywhere. But they only come in and say that one thing that they are gonna say that they have that information. They never return.
Yeah.
Do you ever watch the BBC documentary about the building of the Concorde?
I haven't seen it. What did you hear about it?
Well, they talk about the fuel tanks, and they built a rig, a test rig, which back then cost them 1.25 million British pounds, which is like 30 million pounds today. And the test rig was a scale model, 1-to-1 scale model of the fuel system on the Concorde. And its purpose was to move fuel between the 17 different tanks to keep the Concorde flat and level at Mach 2 speeds.
I think I remember seeing that, actually. Yeah, I remember the Concorde blew up because of all the fact that whole plane was basically a fuel tank.
Well, yeah, it has to carry a lot of fuel to fly at Mach 2. I'll post a link to the YouTube video there in the space.
So what was it? The cost of the Concorde was too much to substantiate with fuel that they discontinued it.
Yeah, the price of fuel kept going up, and that's what killed that. Pretty much plus the bad press from it blowing up and crashing.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, they had to really be careful about the fuel system, right? Because if you carry too much fuel, you can't carry passengers. So in order to reduce drag and increase fuel economy efficiency, they had to balance the aircraft to fly properly instead of using control surfaces to try to trim the aircraft into a flat and level flight. Because at Mach 2, the control surfaces would have to be very beefy and therefore very heavy, which also decreases your fuel economy. So lots of trade-offs when you're flying at Mach 2.
Thank goodness the Earth's a globe, though.
Yeah, because, if you were flying south from London, and trying to land in Singapore, that spin of the Earth would just keep Singapore moving away from you.
Mr. Morepork in the listening panel says, playing with gyroscopes tells me more is at play. What do you mean? I don't know what type of gyroscopes you're playing around with, but what does it tells you more is at play mean? I'm not sure. All I know is that looking at anything that you say is giving you any information, and you're saying that, well, this thing is happening because of something else, but the something else that you're trying to describe within the device that you're looking at is not understood, not observed, then how can you say that it is the case that this is the reason why this device is reacting the way it does? Like the reaction caused in the device, and it maybe, well, for gyroscopes, that it's holding rigidity in space is because of the fact that the Earth is in motion. You know what I mean? So you have to say what the reason is why you think the gyroscope is doing what it's doing, or more is at play. What are we dealing with here? Because this is all kind of like where people get into speculations and they talk about things, what they think could be happening outside of it just, doing what it does. It's doing what it does because of X, Y, and Z factor. I don't know, man. But I never thought our gyroscopes were a good argument for globe.
Yeah, they're the worst argument. Because a gyroscope on an aircraft would be useless if the Earth was moving.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it would start drifting almost immediately after you calibrated it.
I think they left.
Oh, Mr. Moorpork? Yeah. It's kind of hard to tell like who is a glober and who's not, because really people don't say anymore in the text that if they ask questions specifically about how it's not flat or something, then I can tell. But Mr. Moorpork, I couldn't really tell. Hey, we got Ashkey Nordic in the listening panel. What's up, Ashkey? London, England. Welcome. All right. I'm going to hang out for a little bit, and then if nobody does show up and want to come up here to speak, I'm just going to probably put a pause on this stream and then restart it again after a while.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I gotta head to sleep since I gotta wake up early tomorrow.
All right, Rayleigh. Magna, thanks for stopping by, man.
No problem. Thanks for having the space. Too bad we couldn't get more people in here.
Yeah, it'll turn up soon. Usually people have different hours where they come on, so I'm going to try different time frames.